Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Soul-u-tions podcast. Today, I have an unscripted podcast for you. It's one that I want to share with you. It's straight from the heart. It comes from observing and experiencing a lot of loss either in my life recently or in my friends' lives and my family's lives. And so I hope you will take the time to slow down and listen to this episode. And listen, the type of loss we're talking about can be the loss of a loved one. I have just arrived from the 5th funeral in 3 weeks of a friend's parent. It could be the loss of your nest emptying. I know people this time of year are sending their kids off to college, but it could be you're sending them off to first grade for the first time, or a new school in a new city, or to high school. It could be the loss associated with feeling like you don't belong. Maybe there was something, a team that you had a kid wanted to make, or a group like a sorority or a fraternity that they had their heart set on joining and that didn't work out. It's this bigger idea of, when we have to let go of either people we love or dreams that we held close, and how to get through that. So I have 5 specific steps that I want to share with you today that I think will help you a great deal as you navigate loss in your life or transitions that come after a loss or a loved one or a friend does. So I think you're going to want to listen to this and share all the wisdom with people that you love.
Einstein said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." Most everyone in the world is solving their problems the wrong way. Our problems come from our thinking, and we can solve them with our thinking. So whether you're at your lowest, just trying to grow, or whether you are trying to sustain growth over your lifetime, join us as we push the boundaries of our current thinking and redefine how we find solutions.
The hope and the strength and the love and the smiles and the laughter of friends and family. Add it up, you'll find no limit to the possibilities.
I mentioned to you that I've just come back from a funeral of, another one of my friend's parents. And it's so interesting, this midlife time frame that we are all living in right now. In particular for me, my last week has been framed with 2 funerals of a friend's parents, my children going back to college, other friends' kids going back to college, friends' kids going through rush, parents getting diagnoses, spouses getting diagnoses, planning, how to be there for your friends and to be present for them. And then the inevitable question I think that I get a lot of is, how do I parent through all of this? How do I parent when my heart is broken for my child, or when my heart is broken maybe and your child's heart isn't broken, and you're still dealing with, parental aging processes. My mother says that this is the hardest decade of her life. She's 80. She still goes to work. She has mahjong, but she lost my father a year and a half ago, and over this summer, most of her friends have either lost their spouses or their spouses are on hospice. And I live in the same town that I grew up in with my parents and their friends and my in-laws and their friends. And so, I don't know, part of the privilege of growing up is that I get to know their friends so well. And I'm going to these funerals just really listening to all these lives that were full of love and full of ups and downs and highs and lows. And it may be a bit of a trope or or a meme when people say, "What are those eulogy values that you want to take away at the end of your life? What do you want people to say about you when you pass?" And I've been sitting in those pews listening to my friends share their love, their words, their perspective on their parents' lives, as well as friends and ministers who are doing the same. And it is phenomenal to be able to sit in that pew and bear witness to people that you've known and loved your whole life and hear fuller versions of their life story, not just the little moments that you were there for and the snapshot of their life that you have had, but a bit of a behind the scenes tour, I suppose, for each of these lives. And it is so true. At the end of the day, what is it that you hope people will see in you, whether it's your peer group, your friends, your children, your grandchildren? And I think this is really one of the things that motivates me in the Soul-Shine Labs and in all or coaching with my one-on-one clients and here on this podcast too, is to remind you that we really do have to slow down our very fast-paced lives and think about from time to time, if not daily or weekly, am I showing up as the person that I really want to show up as? Or am I being dragged around by the rush and the thrill and the sense of urgency of responding to this email or responding to this text or getting back to this person or this person truly needs me? Or am I taking the time to truly slow down, put those things aside, put that phone aside for a little bit of time and to reflect and realign and show up first for myself and healing and feeling any of the feelings that I need to so that then I can show up in the world as the person I want to be. And without this going off on a little tangent and becoming a sermon itself, I truly think that really this entire, I will call it, mission for me and the Soul-Shine Labs and this Soul-u-tions podcast and the work I do in the world came out of a struggle that I had with growing up in a faith-based household and a faith-based community with the commandment of, loving your neighbor as yourself and loving your neighbor as you feel God's love for you. And, in the day-to-day, when things are just running so fast and there's stresses all around, whether they're financial stresses, health-related stresses, these types of losses that I mentioned in the opening, when we are under stress, we really cannot access that higher part of us that aspires to that commandment that we might have been sitting in a pew for over the weekend and sharing our proclamation of faith and our promise to try to live in that way again. But in the daily stresses, I would find myself not knowing how to accomplish both, not knowing how to accomplish living through the day, meeting the demands of the day, and keeping this type of commitment, promise, present and real in my life. And so as I've been sitting through these funerals, I've gotten a better, I don't know, just front row seat over the last few weeks of how some people have shown up in that way and what ends up being important in these eulogy moments. And instead of telling you what those things are, I want to share with you, go back to that initial struggle that I have, which is how do I show up through the stresses of the day? How do I, which entail real losses, real griefs, things that happen to us that we don't expect to happen, and live out this aspiration of, holding as much space and love for the other people in our lives as we do for ourselves. So here's my top 5. And I think you will find each and every one of them practical and hopefully profoundly impactful in your day-to-day life. All right, so I just typed them up real quick for you and put them on my iPhone. So I'm going to scroll down and read this. So I think the first thing is, in order to live out this promise of holding space for yourself and seeing yourself in the most loving light and encountering a hard moment, a disappointment, a heartbreak, and then holding space to come out on the other side without being bitter and consumed with your own pain, so that you can incorporate and let go of that pain and then resolve and continue to move on from your most loving position. I think it takes great inner strength to do that. And when I'm looking at and observing people in the world today, I don't see a place that is a real live gym for you to go and truly work out your inner strength muscle. And I think that's what I found back 20 years ago when I was initially wrestling with this. And that is what feeds the Soul-Shine Labs, because I do believe we all need a place to nurture and develop that inner strength. And we do that by asking ourselves the hard questions and working through these really difficult challenges that we face, the ones that want to bring us to our knees, right? How do you hold the heartache of losing a parent at the same time that you send a child to school and that child calls you crying with heartache of their own from school? Or, your child calls you on top of this world and you don't want to overlay their feelings with yours. You need to have the inner strength to feel your own feelings, handle your own feelings, and show up as a parent for these young adult kids in this situation. To be what Dr. Becky from Good Inside talks about to all the toddler parents, to be the sturdy pilot. To be the sturdy pilot of young adult children. As my grandmother said, little people, little problems, big people, big problems. They have bigger problems. And you're a big person and your parents are big people and they're having big problems too that might involve end of life and healthcare problems. So this is how I do it, and this is how I teach my clients to do it. First is you have got to slow down. I don't know if you follow the poet Young Pueblo on Instagram. If you don't, you should. That's a pen name for Diego Perez, I think is his real name. He is a beautiful poet and writer. He's written several books, but he has usually just the perfect one sentence synopsis that you can put on an Instagram slide that just hits you right in the heart and feeds your soul and feeds this inner strength that we're talking about. And he says to slow down today is actually an act of rebellion in the world. For him, he found himself in his 20s after growing up in poverty and as an immigrant. I think his family immigrated when he was 4 years old. But he found himself turning to drugs and alcohol and all of these things in order to fill a void inside of him. And eventually, he learned how to notice that urge for the distraction. And the distraction might have been rolling a joint, pouring a drink. And honestly, for those of us who aren't on the alcoholic or drug addict like line of the spectrum, our phones could be our addiction of choice, right? You're a highly functioning person and you have lots of texts and emails and communications, or you're just looking to scroll in order to distract you. So in that moment that you feel the urge, I'm going to talk to those of us who use our phone as that urge to, fill a void in us. I want you to remember this podcast today and just take a moment and turn it upside down and don't pick it up. And allow yourself to feel in the moment whatever it is the feeling is that you're trying to escape. I mean, that feeling could be boredom, and that feeling could be loneliness. The feeling could be grief. The feeling could be sadness. It could be, a number of feelings. But I want you to try to identify that feeling for yourself. Now, this is going to also sound a little strange because I've just told you to turn your phone upside down. But if you cannot identify your feeling for yourself, because I'd love for you to have a piece of paper and a pen and write the feeling down and just sit with it for a second and be still. Young Pueblo says, slowing down, act of rebellion, number one. Number two thing he started to do was to notice that urge to fill that void. And instead of filling the void, just to sit with the feeling. So here's the thing that's going to sound a little like I'm going back on what I just told you. But it isn't, because you will have slowed down and you will have noticed the urge and you will have tried to identify the feeling. But I want you to spend some time getting to know all the feelings that are out there to feel. I remember when I first started this work, and this would have been the work of learning the language of my emotions and all the feelings out there. I pretty much thought there was anger, and I thought there was jealousy, and I probably kind of knew about shame, happiness. That was pretty much the extent. Sadness, five feelings were the extent of my emotional literacy. But I want you to start to spend some time, Google, or whatever your search engine of choice is. Just Google what emotions are. I love the woman and the author Carla McLaren, Karla McLaren, McLaren. She has a good book, The Language of Emotions, but she has a fabulous blog and a fabulous YouTube. And you could just Google her name and write out anger or language of emotions, and you're going to get some hits. And just start to read and get curious about what your emotions are. That will give you something to do when you're trying to feel your emotions. It'll give you some questions to ask. So you slow down, hand over heart, take a deep breath, try to give a feeling to this emotion that I'm feeling right now. Is this grief? Is this sadness? You know, what is it? Longing, loneliness, just give it a name. And then after you name it, go do some research. It'll take 2 minutes typing that feeling in and learning about it. So then the next time you feel overwhelmed, you can slow down, put your phone down, feel that feeling, and begin to kind of get to know that feeling a little more. Like, oh, what is this feeling telling me? This is a great expert, and she's a Harvard PhD, Susan David, that's right. She says that every feeling is trying to connect us to a value that we hold dear. You can see how this is like connects us back to those eulogy values. So if I'm feeling lonely in the moment, I'm like, oh, what is my loneliness trying to tell me? Oh, it's trying to tell me that I'm really craving some social interaction. And then you can say, is there something underneath this loneliness? And it could be, yeah, I miss my kids who are at school. I miss all the things that come with them being at school. I miss their activities. I miss the fullness of my calendar from them being at school. Like, oh, I miss that. And then that begins to inform what my next step is. And instead of staying in that loneliness, and I'm like, oh, if I miss those things, I know that I need to rebuild some things in my life. And I need to rebuild some social connections because this framework and structure that used to provide that has disappeared. But before I rebuild it and just jump into any old thing, this is the time for you to begin to learn and discover what sounds kind of cool and fulfilling to you. What are the things that I might want to do? Who do I want to be in this next chapter of my life? And this might involve like being inspired by some television shows or some biographies of other people or some magazines. You might just see images of people. Who do I want to be in my life? But I also want you to go back to those eulogy values. Who do I want to be known for at the end of my life? And for me, that is a person who strove to understand other people to my best capacity, to be kind, to have the reservoir of inner strength that allows me to hold the complexities of maybe someone who hurt me, who I love, with the fact that I love them, and hold those complexities and see how I could see the situation differently, not in a way that diminishes me, right? Or in a way that denies something happened, or in a way that pretends everything is okay. But no, truly in a way that says, oh, that really hurts what that person said. And on the other hand here, if I believe that this person may have had 3 good reasons for saying what they said, what would those 3 good reasons be? Or 3 good reasons for doing what they did? Do you see that how this is beginning to build that inner strength muscle? Because I promise you, you're going to say, I cannot see any good reasons for this person to have done what they did. There are absolutely 0 reasons. And all that tells me is that you just haven't practice. You haven't developed those inner strength muscles to see beyond what you are personally experiencing, to see the bigger picture. So I always want to challenge you to just say, okay, here I am, always the lawyer. Like somebody has to argue this other side, and I'm going to challenge myself to see the other side from their perspective. And then I can come back, and we live in a world that just wants to like simplify, or everything just has to be black and white, black and white, black and white. It's either this or it's that. But the nuance is in the gray, and your inner strength is going to be in your ability to get into the gray and to step out of the, black and white thinking, either this or that. Like, get in there. And the more you're able to do that, that's how you know. That's like the meter that tells you how strong you are. The better you're able to hold this place and just provide, 3 reasons why. And then you come back to yourself and you're like, okay, that hurt me. And I can understand why you behaved in that way. Inner strength like signal here, warning. And then you have to advocate for yourself and step up and say something now to the other person if you want this dynamic to change. And if you want to be that person you want to be at the end of your life, that people really got to know you and people really got to know where you stand on things. And people really get to take away like, oh, yeah, do you know what? She never shied away from a hard conversation. Never shied away from a hard conversation. She was always willing to go deep. She looked for reasons to forgive other people. And she let go of resentments and anger and judgments. She just didn't mean that she didn't learn from things that hurt, but she didn't continue to put herself in a situation where she was reliving things over and over again. But she developed the inner strength to be able to handle the things. If we bring this back to your parenting, your young adult kids still need you to be that sturdy parent. They don't need you to jump in the pool. That's a coaching term we use. Like as a coach, and I'm with my client's going to tell me all the stuff, and they're going to give me all the reasons, all that they're upset or they're mad or this person did them wrong. And the worst thing I can do is jump in the pool and start splashing around and saying, you're so right. They shouldn't have done that, and like blah, blah, blah. Instead, the best thing to do is to be able to hold the space for them to splash around as long as they want to in the pool, and to say, gosh, that is hard. To acknowledge the realness of their feelings. The inner strength that takes as a parent of young adults, not to jump in the pool with your young adult, right? Not to start seeking blame and pointing fingers and, finding scapegoats, et cetera, et cetera. It is a remarkable amount of strength. It takes a lot of practice to work through basically the math as homework on the side. I mean, it is exactly the same way we learn math as kids. Like, you have to have a worksheet of problems in front of you and you work through them so that you can show up in those moments that are actually present themselves quite often. especially if you have more than one child. Every child has those moments, and sometimes they're going to hit at the exact same time as your moments and your husband's moments. The inner strength it takes to ground yourself, to put your hand over your heart, to tend to your own pain, and to not layer your pain on their pain it's a lot. You got to be strong to be able to do it. But that is what's going to help them get strong at the end of the day. They're going to see that you are not rattled by that situation. They're going to see that you're able to hold the space for them and that you don't have to either deny it's happening or pretend anything's different, but you can say two things can be true here. That is really hard. And who do you want to be as the person who has now experienced this coming out for it? Your ability to slow down and have these conversations for yourself of who do I want to be, those eulogy, like how do I want to be seen by others at the end of my life? You're practicing that in your moments is the worksheets of the math, right? So that when your kid presents you with these devastating, heartbreaking moments, and you're holding that, in this, I don't know, the inner strength, the generation of inner strength that is required of you in midlife. But you are going to be modeling for them their ability to stay close to those questions as well. And you are going to be modeling for them that sticky scenario of how do I live out these aspirational promises to love my neighbor as myself in these moments. This is how you do it. You slow down. I'm going to put my glasses on here so I can read it. You listen to your emotions. You feel the pain without layering it, right? Without hitting back, without pointing fingers, without blaming the other person. You ask questions, better questions than why did this happen or how did this happen? But you ask questions like, given the fact that this has happened, who do I want to be? You let grief do the work for you. That's the final part of it. That's the fifth point. It's like, then you just let grief do the work of you showing up, you feeling just this pain, you being sad, and you moving through it. All right, my friends, those are my thoughts on, the importance of developing inner strength for yourself and the importance of being that person that you want to be at the end of the life, the person who's able to love well and love easier, love harder in the sense of like not making it hard, but just deeper and harder, and letting go of things and being able to forgive so that everybody can say at the end of the day that you were such a great example of that gospel aspiration that we all strive for. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to our next time together in the next podcast. And in the meantime, I hope you're going to share this with your partner, your kids, or a friend who is going through a tough parenting time with their kids. And just say, hey, listen, take a listen to this and tell me what you thought about it, or give me your top takeaway, or maybe we can talk about it on our next walk and talk together. And then you've got a partner involved in this life, and that you are both committed to this dream of, how do we do the messy parts of life and still live out this great commandment. Thank you, my friends.
And I ain't done loving the ones who cared for me. The hope and the strength and the love and the smiles and the laughter of friends and family. Add it up, you'll find no